So I was able to co-author a paper for the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory while having a decent GPA and having a social life. Now I know that kind of sounds contradictory because in engineering school, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that." So how did I have time to do all that and hang out with friends? In this video, I'm going to break down 4 points for you guys so you can ultimately do research, have a good GPA, and also have a good social life. If you don't know who I am, my name is Mustafa Alawad. I make these videos to help other undergraduate students like myself be successful. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Alrighty, so what I have for you guys here is how I wrote a paper for NASA and still had a life. So let's kind of get straight into it. The first thing I want to set for you guys is the expectation here, right? So I'm gonna cut straight to the chase. Your life will be 90% work, which I know that's kind of like a tough pill to swallow, but it is what it is, especially when you're doing research and you're doing classes full time. So anything more than like 12 credit hours, I think I was taking like 18 at this time, which is kind of crazy. So I'm just gonna let you in on a day of my life during this time period. So here's my pencil, right? I'm gonna move over here a little bit more. So I actually had on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'll get to why I'm only mentioning Tuesdays and Thursdays with point number 2. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had an 8:30 a.m. So this is 8:30. Imagine this is like a time block, right? And then I wouldn't have another class until 5:30 p.m., which is that's a long time. That's a long time, a long break to have in between classes, which I actually don't recommend scheduling your classes like this, but I kind of scheduled late, so it is what it is. So essentially during this time period here, I would literally just work on the paper. So I'd work on refining the paper, and I'd also just work on writing the physical software for the tool NASA ended up using. So yeah, a lot of people during this time period, they'd like, oh, go home, take a nap, I don't know, chillax for a little bit, maybe do some homework in between. So I would do homework, and I'd write the paper, and I'd do stuff for the paper. I'd like actually write the physical software for the paper in between this time block. And then also sometimes like during class, I would still work. Like even during this 5:30 sometimes, like 8:30, like my brain wasn't really on. I tend to do better work like during the day. So like even during this 5:30 sometimes, I would still do work. And even like after I'd come home, sometimes I'd come home and like I'd still work. So like sometimes I wouldn't even be done with work until like 10:30, and that's like including classwork as well. So not only was I doing research work at this time, I was also doing just like normal homework as well. So I just kind of want to set that expectation for you guys. I want to say 90% of the time, 90% of your life will be work. Unfortunately, I want to say maybe 10% will be like actually hanging out with your friends, doing this, doing that. So I just kind of want to set that expectation for you guys straight. You will need to work ridiculously hard, and it's only temporary, right? You're obviously not going to be working this hard for your whole life. I want to say like maybe the early years of your life you're going to be working this hard, and then the rest of your life the work will slowly slow down, especially once you get into the later stages of education, at least from what people have told me and what I've seen. So yeah, that kind of leads me into step 2. But before I get into step 2, I also kind of made a video on how I manage my time. It should be in the postcard there. I really feel like it helps with that expectation, and it really lays out the foundation of how I actually manage my time to get stuff like this done. So yeah, let's get into step 2. Now you might have noticed in step 1, the expectation phase or the expectation step, I kind of disregarded the rest of my week. So step 2 kind of explains that, and you should skip class if you can still do well. Now I know that's like kind of a crazy statement to say, but I'm gonna kind of break it down for you guys here. Essentially, what I would do instead of going to class, I would actually, go and work on my research, which it really depends on the class that you're taking. I want to say a lot of these engineering classes, there's a lot of material and sources out there online that you can just like teach yourself this stuff with. So, for example, I took discrete math. I literally found a playlist that used the exact same textbook that we were using in class, and the YouTuber who was explaining it explained it way better than my professor ever would. So I just like kind of took that as an opportunity to just like not go to class, and instead I would just learn at my own pace. And I still ended up doing pretty well in the exams. So instead, with that newfound time that I had, I would actually go and I would develop my skills, and I would continue working hard on my research, and also continue working hard actually writing the code for that said research. And another thing with these classes is they kind of don't teach you these skills that are really important, right? A lot of these classes, at least all the programming classes I've been in, they don't even teach you how to use VS Code, and they don't teach you how to use GitHub, and they don't teach you how to use all these cool features that are baked within VS Code. And I really feel like you're really missing out if you don't know how to use that stuff. And it really puts you in a negative place on the job market, because I really feel like it's important to know how to do all this stuff. So yeah, I really feel like if you can skip class, if there's like no attendance policy, or if you can just like teach yourself the material, which I really think is a really good skill to have, you should skip the class entirely, and you should just go and work on other cool stuff with that newfound time that you have. And that could be a personal project, that could be a project that you're working on with a club, or that could be research. I'm really heavy on the research. I really enjoy research, and I think all you guys should do it. So yeah, skip class, do cooler shit. That's point number 2. Alrighty, so that kind of leads us into point number 3, which is AI usage. Now, before I get into the topic of AI usage, I would like to make one thing clear. I'm going to full screen for this. I do not condone the usage of AI in classes where it is not permitted to be used. Now, that we have that out of the way, I really do want to say that the usage of AI and just me using AI as a whole really amplified the amount of time it took me to learn things, right? So let's say in the concept, or in the realm of classes, right? Let's say there was a concept I didn't understand. I was able to in turn go to AI and have it explain it to me in a way that fit the way I learn, right? So let's say I was struggling in a class like discrete math, and let's think of a random topic like proof by contradiction or something like that. Let's say I didn't understand that topic. I would in turn go to GPT. I'd be like, hey, can you explain this topic to me, or proof by contradiction, like I'm in 3rd grade, right? And it would do it. And essentially I was able to, using that method, I was able to essentially learn at a way higher rate of speed, which I really think is very, very useful, especially when when you have a lot on your plate and you need to learn as much as you can in a very short amount of time, right? And also kind of helped me within the realm of my research. Essentially, I had to go from knowing 0 Python to making a fully working application for NASA within a very short period of time. And when it came to debugging and stuff like that, I really feel like GPT came in clutch at times where I was very short on time and something needs to get done very, very quickly. So I really feel like if you aren't using AI in your life, you should be. And you shouldn't be using it as a crutch. You should be using it as rather a tool. And I really feel like if I know there's like different models out now, and it really gets confusing sometimes. I'm a GPT guy, right? So I've been paying the $20 monthly for the GPT Pro or whatever, and I really feel like it's worth it. And a lot of people are like, oh, $20 is a lot per month. You can cancel your Netflix, you can cancel your music or whatever, or you could just like not eat out for a week, and then boom, that's $20 you can put towards GPT. Yeah, if you aren't using AI, I really feel like you should, because it really amplifies the amount of time needed to learn something. It really speeds up that process, and that allows you to in turn actually hang out with people, which leads me into step number 4. Okay, so that leads us to point number 4, and the last point I want to make here, which is just, I guess all that's left to do is just to actually hang out. So once you've shortened a considerable amount of time that it would take you to learn something with AI, you can in turn go and hang out with people, right? So what do I even really mean by hanging out? Like, I really feel like hanging around the right people is important. Just like how iron sharpens iron, you really want to hang out with people who sharpen your ability and sharpen your mind, right? People sharpen people, in my opinion. So you want to be around people who essentially have their priorities straight and are also striving for a goal that is similar to yours, or even better, that is exactly like yours, so you can learn off each other, right? And what I mean by like hanging out, I mean like maybe going out, grabbing food, just like hanging out at their place, having them come over to yours. Nothing like really too crazy. Um, I really feel like the definition of a social life is subjective, and I really feel like having like a healthy social life is just like hanging out with your friends or your family at least like once a week, and just like not doing anything too crazy, because you definitely want to have that mindset that you're like still locked in, right? You still want to have the mindset where you're still you're still focused on your goals, right? And that's why I kind of made that first point within step 4, to hang out with people who won't essentially drag you down and put you in a place where you don't want to be in. Alrighty, so that's kind of all I really had for you guys today. I really feel like if you're able to apply these 4 things that I talked about in the video, you're going to be able to have a social life, and you're going to be able to essentially work really hard and balance the two at the same time, right? And I really feel like that's important when you're in engineering school, as it can get really tough sometimes, and you kind of really do need to get your mind off things. I really do feel like it's important to, have that downtime and just take your mind off things sometimes, because when you're doing a lot of work, it can get stressful, and we don't want stress in our lives, right? I really feel like the best way to have a really effective life and a really happy life is to minimize stress, and not everything really has to be stressful. So I really hope that this video allows you to actually go out and have fun, hang out with people, while still maintaining that work ethic. If you have any comments or suggestions on videos I should make in the future, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. My name is Mustafa Alawad. Guard your hearts. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.